Hello everybody, welcome to the Chess Harbor. My name is Raf and today I want to continue our Trompowsky opening theory series. So we're looking at positions with the move d4, knight to f6 and bishop to g5. And we've already looked at positions with knight to e4, we've looked at positions with pawn to e6. Now we're going to look at positions with pawn to d5, which is without a doubt the most solid move that black can play. They're really just claiming a stake in the center, denying us of all these possibilities where we play e4 that we saw in the last video. So it's just very solid, but it does allow bishop takes on f6. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at positions with bishop takes on g6. In general, either g takes or e takes, they're both roughly the same evaluation wise, and even our plan is not going to change too much. Today we're going to look at two example games with the move f takes on e6, but it doesn't really change much in comparison with g takes on f6. I quickly want to mention other moves as well. This video we're going to talk about positions with the bishop takes, but in the next theory sections I also want to mention other positions, mainly positions with the move knight to c3. This position actually is no longer labeled as a Trompowsky, but actually a Richter-Verasov attack. So the position should be reached by d4, d5, knight to f3, knight to f6, and now you have the very topical Jobava London with the move bishop to f4, but here bishop to g5 is the Richter-Verasov attack. And I actually really want to explain this opening as well. I think it's an excellent opening to combine with the Trompowsky attack to create a full repertoire, and we're going to look at that opening in later videos, as I think it's an excellent addition to our arsenal. But now let's look at this position. So as I mentioned, knight to c3 is one of the moves I would highly recommend, as it would be beneficial with the rest of the repertoire I'm going to show later. Knight to d2 is interesting as well. We saw that move in the positions with e6 as well. So imagine e6 and e4. We saw this exact position in last video because this now transposes into a French defense. And this position is pretty decent for white. It's also okay for black. It's whatever you prefer. If you're an e4 player and you like these kind of positions, or you like these kind of French positions in general, by all means go for this opening, but I'm not going to go into detail on it because I'm not a fan of it, and to be fair, I also don't know much about the ideas in that position. So I'm also going to I'm always going to play knight to c3 here. I have tried my hand at bishop takes on f6. We're going to see one of my games in this variation as well. We're going to look at this position right now. I'm going to go more in depth about knight to c3 in later videos, as I think it's a more ambitious move, aiming more to stay in the spirit of the Trompowsky. So now let's take a look at the game. Bishop takes on f6, e takes on f6, and there is a couple of ways to play in this position. The first way to play, almost always, best move is e3. This move is nice. We want to get the bishop outside. It also just solidifies this d4 pawn, and it sets up the first plan that white could play, and that is the move c4. Just kind of going for a queen's gambit position, a queen's gambit not declined, but if black takes here, we're just in a kind of normal position. And if you look at this position, it's very similar to kind of Caro-Kann positions as well. If black plays c6, for example, you see this variation in the Caro-Kann often, but then instead of a pawn being on e4 or on e3, the pawn is on e4, and black actually exchanges this pawn off usually. These variations are extremely solid for black, and that's why I personally recommend knight to c3, because these four pawns in front of the king, they offer the king extreme stability, and then together with the bishop pair, black might even be the one that is slightly better in these positions. So that's why I'm not recommending this setup. I've tried my hand at it. I usually don't play with the quick c4 for this move. There's other very interesting variations you could check out. I like to play with the move g3, which is more in the style of a Catalan. Most of the play in this position, because the king is hard to attack with these pawns, we're going to try and attack on the queen side. We're going to put our bishop on g2, and we're going to push forward these pawns, because I think that is the best way to play this kind of variation. We're going to see that in action. So my opponent played the move bishop to d6, a very normal move, and I played g3. Castles, bishop to g2, c6, and knight to e2. In this variation, usually we want our knight on e2 and not on f3, because our knight can no longer jump to e5 because of this pawn, so it's really just kind of bad there. It can swap to d2, but the other knight is usually going to come to d2, so that's why we put the knight on e3, on e2. We're going to see that very often in this variation. Bishop to f5, castles, rook to e8. Right now we've seen all kind of sensible moves by black. You can see different moves here, but they're all going to be very similar in nature. Knight to d2, knight to d7, and b3. So we want to play the move c4. The reason that we don't play c4 immediately here, but we could, is because we don't want to take back with the knight. We want to take back with the pawn and open up the b file. Of course, the bishop would have to go away for that first, but in this position I like the move b3. I think it's a bit better to take back with the pawn. So we play c4, bishop to e4, knight takes on e4, d takes on e4. And black has some space. This is annoying. Our bishop is actually a little bit blunted right now, but we can very easily swap it to greener fields in the later future. It's projecting on the e4 pawn, and black has to defend that, so we get these two pawns in the center, and that offers us some counterplay. Queen to c2, f5, and now c5. We're playing on the queen side. Bishop to c7, a3. We want to push b5, b4, b5. Queen to g5. Black has some aggressive intentions, but they really don't do anything. So we go b4, trying to break through. A takes on b4, a takes on b4. So we're really just looking to go b5 and maybe even b6, and then this pawn will become extremely weak. Knight to f6, knight to c3, rook a6, rook takes a6. So black was maybe looking to double up. We don't want to allow that. Pawn takes, rook a1. So we claim this open file. This pawn is under pressure, so rook to e8 is forced. And now b5. We're just looking to use the tactics a bit. So this rook is pinned, obviously. So even after c takes on b5, we can take with a knight. The pawn can't take back because the rook is hanging, and that would be a very unfortunate way to lose the game. So knight to c3. Opponent played knight to e8. We played knight to c3. Queen to e7, and now knight to d5. We're up a pawn, or we're not up a pawn actually, but this pawn is very weak, so we are going to win that, but we want to simplify the position a bit, so a nice fork to simplify. Queen to d7, knight takes on c7, knight takes on c7, and queen a4. More simplifications. It's very simple. This pawn is weak, we want to double up on it, and now we can see that their bishop is going to transfer. So knight to b5, and we reroute our bishop to greener fields. Bishop to f1, bishop b7, queen to b7, and now a nice tactical finish. Bishop takes on b5, a takes on b5, and queen takes on a8, and my opponent resigned, as back rank mate is going to happen. A very nice win, and really just in showings of what we're trying to achieve in this opening. So very straightforward. We're just trying to look to push these pawns. So when we take a step back here to this position, it's clear we put the bishop on g2 for one simple reason, and that is to help push our pawns on the queen side. So that's what we did. Let's take a look at a second game where this pawn, where also the bishop was put on g2. This game was played by Duda. He played the knight, of course, d4, knight to f6, bishop to g5, and d5. Very stable. And he also took on f6, e takes on f6, and e3 again. Bishop to d6 and g3. Exact same as last game, c6, Knight to d2. The order is a little bit different, but it doesn't really matter that much. f5, bishop g2, knight to d7, knight to e2. Again, we don't want to put the knight in front of the bishop because it's not really doing anything here. This square is well protected. It doesn't do anything on g5, and it also cannot drop back to d2 because this knight is here to protect the c4 square. Knight to f6, and Duda does play this immediate c4. So I went with b3 c4 last game. He decides on the immediate c4, which is equally good. D takes on c4, d takes on, knight takes on c4, bishop to c7, queen to c2. So again, we're playing on the queen side. We want to push these pawns forward. Bishop to e6, a3. We're not going to look at this game too more in depth. It's all about the ideas, really. We just want to push the pawns on the queen side now. And Black actually played very well in this game. So the opponent was Duda against Mamedyarov, and Mamedyarov actually played very well here. He solidifies his kingside, rook f to d1, bishop d5, trading off the strong bishop. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight to d2, h5, and we're looking to attack the white king even in this variation. These pawns, they can often be used to actually attack our king. That's one of the reasons why I also don't really like the variation anymore, is that sometimes white's king actually comes in trouble. Queen d7, a4, h4, knight f3, h takes, knight d5, slight inaccuracy, b5, rook a c8, b takes, and rook to b1. So we claim the file. Bishop d6, rook to b3, also a slight inaccuracy. King to g7, rook doubles on the b file, knight b6, queen a6, c5. So play is on the queen side, but Black played excellently, and actually in the game that I showed you for myself, Black played a little bit passive, and we really got to push these queens on these pawns on the queen side. In this game, Black played very actively, and yeah, of course the game is relatively equal then. D takes on c5, bishop takes on c5, and let's see the end of the game. Duda actually simplified very nicely. We're not going to go over all these moves anymore. But here, Black makes a mistake and allows the pieces to come in, and after this position, bishop to c5 was actually a blunder, and after rook g8, the game is actually resigned. Yeah, after king d7, yeah, it's all going to shit. You're going to lose an exchange, and yeah, the game's over. So the game was actually perfectly played by Mamedyarov up until the very end. I think he got in time trouble maybe, but it's more about the opening, of course. And we saw in the opening, we saw this break with c4 again. That's pretty much the entire idea that white has. Either we're going to be playing with e4 or c4. e4 is very hard to achieve in these kind of positions, so it's always going to be c4, either with b3 to recapture with a pawn, or just the immediate c4 recapturing with the knight, and then we can try and get this bishop into the game. In the next videos about the Trompowsky opening theory, I'm going to show you more about the Richter-Verasov attack as well. I think that kind of position is better for Black to play. So instead of going for the bishop takes on f6, we're going to look at knight to c3, which I feel keeps a little bit more of the Trompowsky spirit alive. But I hope that if you do want to learn the variations with bishop takes on f6, this video has been helpful for you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.